The meeting to order for Lyft. It's Thursday, September 19th, 2019, and the time is 6:33. We have the agenda. Got a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Oops, I forgot the roll call, I'm sorry. I just skipped right over it. Let Wendy start.
Everybody who voted was not here.
Chair Seeler.
Here,
Seiler, sorry.
present.
Board member, or Vice Chair Christensen. Here. Board member Hopping.
Here.
Board member Breezak. Here. Board member Rychecki.
Here.
Board member Henderson.
Here.
And board member Arena.
Okay, sorry about that, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we have the minutes from our last meeting as part of the packet. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just real quick, on the committee assignments under D, where I've been assigned to the finance committee, and that was it was second choice. Just, I don't feel like I'm part of that committee. I was gonna do some groundwork for Jack if he needed, but, so if we could just reflect that that's, if needed, maybe, might be the best way to say it.
If needed. I can make that change.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion for that change?
No, you can just do it as a friendly update, that's fine, I'll make the change and get it posted.
Thank you. Okay, those in favor signify of approving the minutes with the one change, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Do I have any announcements at this time? Does anybody? Okay. Public appearances. Those in the audience are welcome to come forward and make comments. We ask that you start with saying your name for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who wishes to come forward? Okay, seeing none, we will close public appearances. Financial report, I did get where Tiffany was unable to be at this meeting. I'm not really sure what happened. So we'll have her scheduled for the next meeting to provide a quarterly report. Business reports, unfinished business is the EPS report. We have the final memo from EPS. Are there any questions regarding or discussion regarding the memo?
It was short and sweet, and I didn't find anything in it that we didn't know before. But I'm kind of curious, we paid $4,500 for it. I remember a couple, 3-4 meetings back, we had volunteers from this group go out and go approach the business owners directly. And I'm thinking, why didn't we do that?
I didn't think we had the information at first to make sure we knew who to contact. That came out about a month later. And then about the time that is when the city moved forward with the agreement with EPS. So I think it's just a timing thing.
Okay. And what we found from it basically is the city needs to provide more police protection and put a crosswalk in. Is that correct?
More or less.
Yeah, so it's
And
a
everybody's asking about the,
city's responsibility.
correct. But I think that's part of why the city wanted to partner with us is also to find out other things other than just about urban renewal and development in that area. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Mr. Chairman. I agree. The good thing is it's documentation of a lot of what we had already known, but the good thing about having it documented is we can cite it. We're left, of course, still with the same question, which is, we got some answers in person and also on here that we need to try to either do nothing or focus on that parcel. But we still don't, what's left is still to try to decide if there's anything that we can do. And I'm asking this in mind because we're gonna need to in turn make another written report to the council, which I'm sure will reference this a great deal. But I candidly don't know what we're going to recommend.
So, which gets me to the next thing under new business, we're done with this.
Yep.
Is Columbine Square. So out of what EPS did, my takeaway was that there was some indication from some representative of Columbine Square that there may be some interest or movement in doing something with the city and possibly with urban renewal with that property. I have been trying to contact them and have not gotten a hold of their representative.
Okay.
The main representative, the contact out of California. So I'm still trying to get a hold of him. I think that's probably, unless somebody has some other thoughts or ideas, I think that's probably gonna be our main thing with the city council. Our recommendation is that we continue to work with the Columbine Square owners and developers on researching and discussions of how urban renewal and urban renewal financing can help get that property developed into something that's viable for the city.
Well, hold the phone.
Sure.
Bill, did you read that email I sent you? And I didn't get a response back from you, so I don't know what your thoughts are on it. However, I think we can be more proactive than that.
Okay.
And when I first got on this board, I knew this thing was jumbled up. We didn't have an executive director, we didn't have council. And after a year and a half, we still are trying to figure out some of that stuff. However, we do have a piece of property that is blighted. We have a landowner that we seem to have lost contact with. I think we could be proactive with these steps. Number one, we need to get a written assurance from City Council that they are legally able to assign their share of the sales taxes collected in the urban renewal area for the duration of the urban renewal plan to us to lift, which means that this current rate is $100,000 a year. If we have that written assurance that it's legal and that is binding upon future city councils, then we can take that, already the money we have and the stream of money we're going to collect, which could be as little as $2 million or as much as 2.5, depending on what inflation does to the sales taxes. Approach the developer and say, look, we got this money. We want you to start a process to develop this property. We want you to develop the property in accordance with Envision Littleton, in accordance with zoning, and in accordance with building code. However you develop it, as long as it meets those three criteria, we will guarantee any bona fide third-party debt up to the amount that we receive during this period of time. So that amount of money we're going to receive is clearly enough to totally raise the site and get rid of all the utilities that are underground, the data. So you start the developer process right now with an incentive, because we have to incentivize them to do something. They're just sitting back, land banking. We don't wanna do that. But we tell them you gotta do this quickly, otherwise the window of opportunity is shut, period. So now if I'm sitting back being the developer and I'm thinking, gosh, I could get $2 million, this could make it work, I'd probably talk to us. Okay, so you probably wouldn't get shut out when you start approaching them. Then, if the developer were to accidentally, on purpose, put in some commercial that would give us more tax incentive, we would at that point ask him or her, or whatever the entity is, for funds that we could engage a contractor to review their economic development, all the documents that they have, so that we would feel comfortable in further guaranteeing third-party debt on behalf of the developer with that income stream. And now, why am I talking about a guarantee? Because if we went to the public market, or let's say a bank or whatever else, we're gonna have to pay for some kind of counsel to do the debt. So let's say it's a public offering. We got a bond counsel to pay for, we have a trustee to pay for, and we have an underwriter to pay for. If we go to a bank, it's much cheaper, but we still have a lot of costs involved. However, if our debt obligation is to the developer, then we eliminate all of that. We'll take our attorney and we'll sign a contract with that developer to guarantee its debt. Much cheaper for us, much less risk. Because we have the income stream coming in, we're not gonna default like happened at Riverfront. Because we have the income stream. The only danger of default would be that the sales tax revenues fall short. However, any banker worth his or her salt is gonna look at the income stream we have and you're gonna discount it, probably 80%, which is standard. And we just keep banking that money to provide more incentive to do public works or whatever at the end of the period. We release the funds back to the city and give it to them and pay off the $150,000 debt we have with them at that time. Or we do something with the money to enhance the public, the public's perception of Columbine Square at the time. So it is a 19-year plan, what we have left, or 20-year plan, what we have left. We don't have to worry about, I think it's very low risk and very little cost to us, because we don't have to go engage a executive director. We can have our attorney help with the negotiations there. We don't have to have a full-time consultants on staff, only if the developer decides that there's gonna be some commercial in there and that the developer would like us to capitalize that projected income stream to lower more debt. And I'm banking on the fact with Envision Littleton, the developer is gonna have to put some public amenity improvements in the plan. The city's not gonna let them get away with that. That's why our plan can possibly support that. Or it can immediately get rid of the blight by getting rid of the foundations, the slab, and the underground utilities. Now, if the developer doesn't bite on this, like I said, what's the consequence of not doing it? Number one, we can just petition the council and say, we're not needed. Take your money. It's been nice. It's been good. Because if the developer comes in 5 years later and wants us to help with anything, we only have, at that point, 15 years left. On a $100,000 basis, we can't borrow even about $1 million. Okay? Time is our enemy. On the other hand, we could sit there and bank the money if the city council wants it that way. And at some point, we might have enough money, depending on what, to look at condemnation of land and try to make a parcel out of it. Some point. Now, I am not saying to the general public out there in TV land that I want to go and condemn land right now. But I'm saying it makes our options greater for a future for down the road if they have to assemble land in order to make any kind of development reasonable. That's what I think would be a good proposal to lay in front of city council.
I think it's got some merit, Jack, and I think, we need to check obviously with council about, our ability to guarantee and how that all works, but I think that, being proactive with them, I'm not so sure we shouldn't go see this guy and just say, look, we're gonna, one or two people, we go pay him a visit, just lunch. Let's get the conversation started, because once we can engage him in conversation, throw some apples on the table and see if they have an interest in going forward with that. He could say no, in 3 months he turns around and sells it, and we strip the opportunity out from under him. I think one of our other backup plans should be, how do we keep the options alive? And you can, start a repayment schedule on our loan on whatever's left in the thing, 20 years or 15 years or whatever we have left. And we could have probably afford that payment. I haven't worked it out, I don't know what it is. But that way we stay alive. So we need to have a couple of different options, but I think, the idea of a guarantee and getting a site prep ready, we also need to make sure that we're, the timing of these is right and the obligation, because if we guarantee that we're gonna go in and prepare his site, what obligations does he have? And, those have to be tied together pretty well so that our interest in that expenditure is protected. We will have made an investment, what do we have to show for that in the long run if he doesn't follow through on that? Is that an attached thing that, we have a lien on the property that he doesn't intend to sell?
I have the devil's in the details.
Right.
This is just
Yeah,
a framework
Exactly.
of where I think we should head.
And those things evolve as you work through the process, you know that better than anybody. But that could give us a framework to go to council and say, look, this is a plan that we've, put a lot of thought into over a period of time that has some viable options about where we can go. Everybody knows this is a long, difficult process to get these things done, especially when you're working with a developer who's not anxious to come to the table or hasn't exhibited that yet and he hasn't been incentivized. So I think the incentivization piece is an important part of that. So how do we can pull that together? You've already done a lot of it.
Sounds like.
Because your email went in and addressed that in pretty good detail about how those options can lay out. I'm sorry.
No, I apologize. I interrupted you. But I was gonna say, it sounds like if we wanted to explore that, first step is this framework writing that Jack would wanna show to us. And assuming we liked that, then it would be approaching the council about getting that assurance. Those are some very clear first and second steps. If we like this plan, it's possible that that the plan is the recommendation that went to council, if we were to embrace it. I like the idea, by the way, that you could attach the work that we would do, like in raising the land, getting rid of the foundations and so forth. That could be part of a contract in theory, that could be a trade, something we were offering to do in exchange for the other stuff. Anyway, you were gonna say something.
In exchange for a Costco.
I don't think that'll happen. The challenge we have right now is getting them to talk to us. And like I said, I've reached out to them in 3 different manners, and I've not yet to get a call back. So if we, part of this is a partnership with them to sit down and say, what is viable? Is any of this viable? If their plans are to sell this property in 6 months,
You mean just to float the idea?
just to even have a conversation.
Even as we're writing it.
Right, I mean, it's, we have to come to, from what I'm hearing, the direction I'm getting from the mayor is we have to come up with a plan, and the plan has to have some validity to it.
Yeah.
And that means there is a commitment from that developer or that property owner to sit down and work through whatever we do.
Yeah.
And develop that property into something in the foreseeable future. Not in 5 years, not in 10 years, but in the next year or two to see some real concrete things happen there.
I'm sorry, Andrew, that's weird.
I'm not sure what's going on. I'm gonna keep trying.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, if, you gotta have somebody else there to have that kind of conversation. I have thought about do a couple of us go out there and sit down with them and talk these ideas, or have them come here and talk to us. But again, I can't even offer that if they're not picking up the phone or replying to an email.
Sure.
And if they do pick it up and they say, we're not interested, there's really nothing else left.
Of course, absolutely.
On that.
On that. But even, and I don't see anything strong, because part of what the city's telling me, if we take on any of the other infrastructure things, let's say burying utilities. Problem with that is we may do something that'll be undone by this development later. So they don't wanna waste dollars.
Absolutely.
So I'm not, in doing anything that's coming out of the Envision Littleton or the Bellevue Corridor Plan, there's not enough money there to tackle really any of those things that have been brought up in that. So that's the other part of the challenge for us. Yes, Patrick.
I spoke with John Needy, is that who you're reaching out to? About probably a good 6 weeks ago, and had a good conversation with him, thanked him for cleaning up the lot. It looked good, they had about 30 workers over there just cleaning up. So we had a real nice conversation. I said, where do you stand? He says, we're close to presenting something back to the city. I said, okay, great. What are the chances pulling up your fence and all the concrete? I said, I've already checked with our planning group. They said there's no problem. We won't require retention ponds or anything like that. If you take it down to a soft surface, he says, I don't know what you're paying for fencing over there, but you probably got a mile of it over there. And he says, I like the idea. Let me run that by the ownership and see if they're willing to do that at least. I said that would make everybody feel a lot better if you would at least take that step and just overseed it with whatever. And let's. So I've since tried to reach out to him 2 or 3 times, and just recently, Thursday, so Monday, in preparation for tonight, hoping I'd have some more information. Because I talked to Debbie and I wanted to say, lift is here. We have money to help you out, but it's gonna go away if you don't, you're reacting to our phone calls or whatever and give us some status updates. So I just tried to text him. I thought I was at his cell number, but that was not his cell, that was main line. So that's where we stand. So I've not been able to leave voicemails. His voicemail is always.
That's what I found out
Yeah.
last week.
So that's the latest from since I've talked to him. Like I said, about probably maybe five weeks ago or so.
And there was another representative that the EPS folks had spoken to. Said it was a woman who had just joined the firm recently.
I think it's a local company. I was gonna reach out to EPS and find out who that was.
Yeah, that's,
This is crazy. So, it's because, I don't think, if we don't have something or a commitment from them, that they wanna start working with the city and working with us and moving forward with something new on that property. One, I don't think there's gonna be any discussion about renegotiating our loan. We are, I have been advised by, legal, we are, not in compliance with our loan. So there's an issue there, which means, and Lyft hasn't been, as far as I can tell, since the beginning of the creation of urban renewal, which is, if you don't do anything with the money within a quarter or a year, you have to, refund that money. So they have not been doing that. The sales tax increment that's been collected. So that's another thing we have to, to your point of we just keep collecting the money, right now we can't do that. That would have to be taken out of the loan agreement, if that's an option. And I'm not sure council wants to sit here and just see this money piling up over here when there's other, pressures, financial pressures and on the city to do other projects. They could, they're seeing this as a pot of money that can be used elsewhere, and I get that.
Would it be fair to say they'll only be interested in negotiating on that loan if there's actually something to do?
Correct. That's the feeling I get.
That's why I suggest that we get, first of all, find out from the council if they are willing to go along with this framework and are legally, and they can legally obligate themselves to divert those sales tax funds to us. If they can't, the framework's dead. On the other hand, if it is alive, I like Bill Hopping's suggestion that two people from the city hop on a jet, go to LA, talk to them, take their temperature, put the plan in front of them, say, take it, and your window of opportunity to accept is 90 days.
If we don't get a deal done, we'll come back on a max 8. So, I think we've got some framework here to kind of piece something together. And I think that's step one. I think there are different ways to get a hold of him too. Talking on a slightly different thing, you say the city doesn't like the other things. I think that study did show some consistency of needs, and there's no reason we can't develop a bit of a gateway there. Because I'd like to have some kind of a statement that you are now leaving Sheridan and entering Littleton. I mean, that, you don't know. And if you look at it, it's a lot nicer south of Bellevue. It's greener, it's a little more open, it's, the development that's there is a little nicer than Sheridan, but we can, with the little money we have, we can do some stuff with signing and crosswalks and that kind of stuff. It is not gonna go away, it should comply with Envision Littleton, but it can be long-lasting. With the work, we've had some very good architects involved with the city who have helped put together Envision Littleton. Paul was here to talk, Paul Bryant, and I'm sure that could be evolved a little bit to fit our budget. That does something with an identifiable revenue source to pay for it that just doesn't come out of the city budget. So I think that second option is worth looking at. That here's an either or. We're working, we've got these options with the Columbine Square people, and we hope that can come to fruition. In lieu of that, and they can be totally independent, because if they come to the table, they're gonna generate some more revenues for us in the long run. We may have to front some money, but we can meanwhile simultaneously develop a gateway on that end of the neighborhood and welcome to Littleton. We have one gateway, really as you come off of Prince. There at Santa Fe with the sign. We've got one coming off of Santa Fe where it says welcome to historic downtown Littleton, the Three Chimneys building and all. And those are nice, feels good. And we could use more. So it's another option that we have. We have two mutually exclusive options there.
Well, I look at it in a different perspective. Number one, the city itself, with its own funds and its own budget, can put up its gateway signs whenever it wanted, wherever it wants, doesn't matter. They don't need us to do it, but they do need us to work with the developer.
They do need us to
So
work with the
I
developer.
would just as soon tell the city, we can't get the developer to do it, here's all your money back. Go forth and do good.
Well, but the other hand, our job is to remove blight. And if by gatewaying an area, we can remove blight, then that's part of our job as well. And your point's well taken, but this is specifically blight related. The base of Main Street at Alamo and Santa Fe was not blighted. Santa Fe and Prince was not blighted, where Lost Cajun is. Those weren't blighted areas. This is a blighted area. So,
And we were gonna take care of blight, with all due respect, is to get rid of the foundations and the slab.
absolutely, those can be mutually independent.
So what are you recommending? I mean, one of the first steps, I've gotta get a hold of, Mr. Edel.
You know,
And from that conversation, we can figure out, if there's an appetite to do something or not. How do we develop this second option that you talked about?
I think we sit down with an architect and develop a sketch plan. You know, that, I don't know what that would cost us to do, but, and it doesn't have to be definitive.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be final, it can be conceptual.
I have a couple of questions. In the EPS study, they say that they've talked to Columbine has expressed some interest. Do we know who specifically they talked to?
They said who it was when they did their presentation. I have to get back with them and get that contact information and see who that was. I don't think it was a John because they indicated several times that it was a woman they talked to.
See, I thought
I
it was
think
a
it
new
was
rep,
as a
local.
new local rep, because I know they dismissed the partner, whoever they were with about a year and a half ago or whatever, they're no longer working with. I'm not sure who ended that relationship, but this was a new individual, so I had a chance to reach out to them and say, who is this individual? Can I have that contact
I
information?
suggest we do that and
That's-
see if we can't work through the back door that way.
Yeah, I was just given, Mayor Brickman gave me John's contact. He seems to be the one that's really the true rep, that speaks for the Chang family. So I just wanted to figure I'd just go to him and didn't think it'd be this difficult to get a hold of him. But we'll keep trying.
The other concern that I have, I like the framework idea. We need to follow that through. The second idea, I think we have some issue with that, and I go back to what the attorney said at our last meeting. The urban renewal law is very specific about how increment can be spent, and it can be spent on debt. So we can't be going and funding a gateway, but we could certainly turn the money back over to the city and let them create the gateway. Or we need to go borrow money to do it in order to pay for it. Of course, I don't know how much.
I'm not sure if that's the case, I mean, because we've heard other urban renewals, talk to us, they've bought property, they're not financing it with debt, I don't believe.
Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. There are a lot of urban renewal, particularly Arvada, they've been around for 40 years. They bought and sold land, they condemned land. They have revenue sources other than increment. We don't. That's a difficult situation for us.
It is very difficult. What I would do is if before we would spend a lot of time on talking about gateways and stuff, I would get a ruling,
Right.
an opinion from counsel, legal counsel to say, can we do this?
You get a return call.
I'm sorry? Oh. I did find it.
Jack, would you share the email with the rest
Yeah,
of
and I
us?
didn't share it with anybody because number one, I didn't want to have a public meeting. And I've been working with him on getting lenders lined up or whatever else. And because Mr. Hopping is engaged in real estate investments and development, I thought he would be a good one to, as a sounding board.
Right.
Let me ask this question, if, we are able to set up a meeting, with, the change representative, would you two be interested in going and representing the LIF board and talking to them about what we do?
Yes.
Okay. All right, yes,
I just wanted to remind you all that you're meeting with council on October 22nd, and whatever you're turning over to them, whatever your plan is, has to be into me by 10/16.
correct.
Okay,
10-16.
just wanted to remind you of
Is
all
that 10:16 the morning of the meeting?
No. Next try. You don't want your clerk to get packet face. Packet face is a bad thing.
Packet face.
So that just gets to our report, really, we can't really start working on a report to council till we flesh out some of these things.
I'd like to suggest that Jack and I work together with just a skeletal framework,
Okay.
and if that's okay with you, and we can, you know, I can, talk to one of the architects and see what they would, envision as how we could get some kind of a preliminary concept thing, and maybe if you wanna talk to city attorney and get a read on if
Okay.
we could gateway something, how that would work.
Okay.
With that.
The email, how rough?
That one.
I mean,
It's,
is it something that would, if I add that into a email to the representative, would it
I might
embarrass
have to
you?
clean up some of the pejorative language.
yeah.
Could you send me something that
I will.
you would
I will
not
clean
be
it up and I will
embarrassed?
send it to everybody on council. How does that sound?
Thank you.
You know, I would suggest that
Council would
it's probably more detailed than the Columbine Square owners need at this
No,
point.
just something-
Just say that we're considering a variety of financing mechanisms that could
Right,
work.
if you could
Like, just
give me
leave it
something that
amorphous.
could try to get their attention and I could, whether I talk to them or I have to send them another email. Okay.
The one thing about doing this report for council, I mean, we talked about we really can't start it or get it going, but we kind of can because I think we have to go back a little bit and say, this is what we've done, and we have to reference the fact that EPS
Mm-hmm.
did the report, so I think that that could actually be started or have some kind of idea if there's an outline or something that comes up and says, here's what we need to say to council about what we've done over the last year or so or whatever. And I think that there's gotta be some background in there on what we've tried, what we've done.
So, Mr. Hopping and Mr. Henderson, can you start working on some draft things with some stuff that needs to be plugged in, maybe some historical stuff on this? And also assume, that we do have something positive that we wanna move forward with, what we would be looking for, that we, in the loan, areas of concern, which would be the terms, the payback part, the refunding if we don't spend the money, those type of things, start talking about that. Cause I think we probably have to approve the memo prior to our meeting. So we don't have much time. Okay? So we have another meeting next week, a study session. We can still have that meeting to start talking through some of these things, that we have some initial drafts. And if we have some information about the Columbine Square developers. And also what we may need, to deal with, Envision Littleton projects.
Okay.
So at this point, we'll still have that study session to talk about those things.
We won't
So
have
that's
the
next-
final draft of Envision till the second. It goes to planning commission on the second and council on the third. So we don't have that final draft. I don't think it'll be available.
We have the draft right now that's out.
Yeah, but there's comments that they're incorporating into it.
Correct. I mean, we can take some broad concepts from that and talk about what we could do if they stay relevant within the final draft.
You're on a short timeline.
We are.
Everything comes crashing.
So our meeting is next Thursday?
Correct.
Kevin, do you have the rest of our meetings scheduled? So is next Thursday the last meeting before we meet with council?
We meet with the council now on the 22nd.
We meet on the 22nd.
Yeah,
So
so-
we have a formal meeting.
Our schedule has changed so much,
Yeah.
I'm not sure when we're meeting.
Our board meeting is on
10th.
the 10th.
Ten.
Okay, 10th.
Right, we meet on the 10th
And next week.
and next week.
And then from 10:10, the next one is 10:22?
Yes, with the meeting with council
Okay.
on the 22nd. So
So we
What's on
would
the
need to, on the 10th, get everything ready,
10th is a lift.
so we can get it to
Wendy by the 16th.
Wendy by the
16th.
16th. Yeah.
Yep.
So we have to be pretty much ready by then, or we schedule
Right.
another meeting like in between there somewhere.
Right, I'll look at having another meeting in there, probably the beginning, like the week of the September 30th.
Like maybe the 3rd.
Well, I can't do the 3rd or 4th, but I'll get with Wendy to see what's available and we'll get
The
that.
Monday, the 30th is available.
All right, why don't we just pencil that in for now since we have it, and Wendy's here to do that for us.
Did you say Monday the 30th?
Monday, the 30th is available on the calendar.
Okay.
All right, so we'll have that as a study session to work through, our report.
Are you gonna want packets for these meetings, or do you already have the material and I can just post, or?
Well, right now, the big thing is, the only thing, material we're working on is the memorandum.
Right, and you all have that.
We all have that. As we develop other things, we may move forward to you.
Okay. I just wanna make sure that I have it, because you're gonna have a meeting on the 26th. And then you're gonna have a meeting on the 30th, so I'm gonna have to have it's like a massive turnover in one day.
Correct.
Okay. So you and I are gonna have to be
Yes.
on it, okay.
All right. Anything more there on the report to council? Okay. So comments and reports. Board Member Brejak, do you have anything?
Not so much a report as a question about our study sessions. They've not been videotaped.
Correct.
And it's not a decision that we made. What's changed about our procedures?
I didn't know that there was ever before that was a, requirement. I think it was just if somebody was available, they recorded it, but it hasn't been a requirement of anywhere for us.
I thought
It's
we
not a requirement for any of the boards.
even for planning
And
commission.
we haven't done it.
Okay,
And
so
we
do
haven't
it's
just,
videotape
yeah,
those
just
anymore.
we haven't been doing it.
I know we
can't remember
haven't,
when
so
we haven't.
folks
No,
are
because
curious
then-
why, we were doing it and then we stopped.
Because when you get into the other situation where we've had the subcommittee meetings where there's been 3 members, do those get recorded? I mean, this just can keep getting,
No, that's completely different than
that may be your opinion, but I could see where somebody else can make the argument saying, well, no, I want that recorded because I wanna see what happened. I mean,
quite different than a study session, but if we're not gonna record them,
No. Member Christensen.
I'm just wondering if, who's doing the writing on this stuff? Jason?
It's Bill and me.
Okay.
But if there's stuff that you feel, you know, I'm sure they would welcome.
God, yes.
You know, anything you may wanna contribute.
Absolutely. It's an exposure draft, as they say.
Member Henderson,
Nothing to report.
member Hoppy,
I think we just did it.
okay? Member Rychecki.
Gave you what my report was earlier. I sat and thought and thought and thought.
There is now a Jack framework.
So the only thing I have is, I just wanna share a communication I received from Ms. Chadbourne. I think it happened the day before our last regular meeting. There was concern that our meeting was not posted everywhere. We did post it, we failed to post it on the Lyft website. It was a oversight, basically human error. She has asked that we set some time aside to, you know, monitor things and such. In the 2.5 years I've been on the board, it's the first time that that's happened. I don't think it's anything that is indicative of a problem. If it happens again, we'll take it up at that point. I think it was just a human error that got overlooked, and that will happen from time to
The
time.
meeting changed and Eric did,
Right.
Eric wasn't able to.
We didn't put it on the right site, I mean, on all the sites. But it was posted legally, it just didn't get to all the sites that we wish it to be at. So,
Thank you.
alright, other than that, meeting adjourned, thank you all.
So, Jason, I'll put it together.